The following was taken from a Time magazine article called "Should You Diagnose Yourself Online? Here's What Doctors Think." It was dated April 10, 2018. "We recognize that knowledge is power," says Dr. Michael Munger, president of the American Academy of Family Physicians, who practices in Overland Park, Kansas. "In many cases, information is a good thing as part of the overall collaboration between patients and their physicians and care teams. I think the angst comes in around the fact that some of the resources available on the internet can be good and some are not so good. Another problem is that the symptoms people enter are often general, vague complaints that could be a sign of a number of conditions that only a doctor is best equipped to investigate further. The most commonly searched symptoms in the WebMD's checker included bloating, cough, diarrhea, dizziness, fatigue, nausea, and headache, according to Ben Greenberg, Vice President of the Mobile Products and User Experience at WebMD. So, what does that mean for you? Well, it doesn't mean a whole lot for you other than just be real careful when you diagnose yourself on WebMD. But what it means, if you relate that to technology support, it means quite a bit. We all own computers. We all know how to kind of look for little answers here and there on the internet, but there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. It's not as big of a deal when it's on your home computer, perhaps, but when you do this kind of troubleshooting by using internet resources for your business, when you have servers and networks and complex configurations, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble really quick. And just like the doctors, we would like to see you guys call us before you, or call your IT provider before you get too deep in the weeds on trying to solve a problem. So I looked something up. I looked up this term. I said, router won't connect to internet, and I plugged that into Google. The results on Google were 20.5 million results. And the first displayed solution is from a Netgear Knowledge Base article. And it says, to troubleshoot wireless network problems, turn off wireless functions and directly connect your computer to the router with an Ethernet cable. Reboot the computer and check for an internet connection. If there is still no internet connection, reboot the router and any modems in use. So these sound like viable solutions for someone at home on their cable modem and Linksys or whatever consumer grade firewall at home trying to troubleshoot things. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to lose internet connection. You're going to have to call someone to come out and put it back together for you. But if you're in a larger enterprise, you could actually be opening up security holes to your system that is going to allow an attacker to get in, and you really don't want to take that responsibility. Now, if you have a server in your business and you search for server won't connect to internet, and this is a common search term, there were 63.2 million results on that term. And the second result on the page was titled solved in brackets. Have server which won't access internet. Computing.net gave the following answer. Disable Ethernet local adapter, disable Ethernet adapter local area connection to. It should not be enabled. We always point the DNS server to itself, as should all the workstations should point to 192.168.1.4. You have to have these answers in context. If you follow this same diagnosis and solution that's offered, which is the second result on the search results and the first solution on computing.net, you're going to totally make your computer inaccessible to any device on the network, let alone the server. So you really don't want to create these problems. Now, if you do create these problems, make sure that you document everything that you've done, all the changes. So if you do need to bring someone in, you can say, this is what I followed, this is what I did, and then they can maybe undo, get you back to where you were at, and then troubleshoot the original problem. What you don't want to pay someone to do is sit and resolve issues that you've created before they can even get to the problem at hand. Things to take into consideration whenever you're troubleshooting a problem on your computer, your network, is the version of the software you're working on. So if you're working on a Windows 10 computer or a Server 2012 server, a SonicWall router, be sure you specify what version you're on. Specifically, when dealing with firewalls, you want to specify the firmware version in your search terms. So firewall type or firewall model, type, firmware version, and then the issue you're having, and you can probably find some good results that way. But if you just put in the issue and maybe the model, you could be dealing with solutions that don't match the device that you have. Also look for legitimate support resources. There are a ton of fake support resources out there, things like, and you've all probably seen them, where call this number and for a small fee we'll resolve your IT issues. Now there are companies out there that are legitimate that are doing that, but many of them are out of India, Pakistan, or whatever, and it's just a complete fraud. So you want to be very cautious not to get a hold of those resources. The next one is, there's a lot of things like answers.com. I forget, there's lots of different answer companies where you search for something and it'll have a question and an answer, and a bunch of people answer. Well, they may not be qualified to answer that, or maybe their answer only applies to certain circumstances. So you also need to know the context of the support being provided on the internet. For instance, if you're asking you have a computer problem and you're asking a question, well, if you don't know the context of the answer, you're going to get it wrong. When I talked about the solved have server which won't access internet from computing.net, you don't know the context. If you read all the answers, not just the last final answer, if you read all the answers given, there's a whole lot of troubleshooting that went on before the final answer was given, and the final answer did not cover all aspects of the troubleshooting. So you want to make sure that you read all the information whenever you're trying to troubleshoot using online knowledge-based systems. So if you do decide that it's important for you to try to solve things, number one, make sure that you document the steps that you take, so when you do have to call a professional, they can back out to where you started and they can troubleshoot the original issue. Number two, make sure that you go to knowledgeable resources to get those answers. If it looks shady, it's probably shady. So make sure that you've got everything in context. And that's pretty much all I've got. Just want to make sure that you guys are keeping your network safe and secure. Just remember, just because you can make something work doesn't mean that it's still secure. You can easily and oftentimes make your entire environment very insecure even though it's functioning, and the next thing you know, you're fighting viruses and intruders, and they're very hard to get out of your system once they get in there. So that's all I've got for today. If you have any questions or concerns, please give us a holler.